Hey you, yes you! Would you like to buy a subscription? It's absolutely free, and it really helps me out. Plus, we post cool content all the time. It's totally worth the price. Just one little click. Please don't hate me. Today we react to the past that we can never return to, the Anthropocene Reviewed.
Today, we're doing something different. Our friend John Green will read a story from his podcast, The Anthropocene Reviewed.
John Green, he is that guy from the Sci Show, isn't he? Pretty sure that's him. I really like that guy.
We hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back with a regular video soon.
Let's go!
So, if you've ever been or had a child, you will likely already...
I'm sorry, we gotta rewind it and restart because I'm just so thrown off by seeing this animation and hearing that voice. The iconic Kurzgesagt voice and their iconic animation style paired together is perfect. And it's just so deeply ingrained in my mind that this threw me way off.
So, if you've ever been or had a child, you will likely already be familiar with hand stencils. They were the first figurative art made by both our kids. Somewhere between the ages of 2 and 3, my children spread the fingers of one hand out across a piece of paper, and then, with the help of a parent, traced their 5 fingers. I remember my son's face as he lifted his hand and looked absolutely shocked to see the shape of his hand still on the paper, a semi-permanent record of himself.
I have 2 kids, and both of them when they were growing up, I mean, they're still growing up, but both of them when they were around that age of the first hand stencils, they absolutely loved it. They did it all the time, and they did it in all sorts of different manners, making chickens and turkeys and monsters and smiley faces, and it was amazing. And the joy on their face, especially when they first discover that, it's amazing. Any parent out there will immediately understand what I'm talking about, but that joy of realizing that they just made that imprint of their hand and it's there now. It's an amazing moment.
I am extremely happy that my children are no longer 3, and yet to look at their little hands from those early artworks is to be inundated with a strange, soul-splitting joy. Those pictures remind me that they are not just growing up, but also growing away from me, running toward their own lives.
It's so true and so sad as a parent. I mean, it's crazy as your kids grow and they just have their own self-identity that they have to start pursuing. And as they get older, they start pursuing that more. And inevitably, that path leads to more separation from the parents. And like me, I have a wonderful relationship with my parents. I love them very dearly and I'm eternally grateful to them. But even I get over there to see them way less than I would wish to. And it's sad because I can't imagine being in their shoes and moving from this precious little thing that you held and created and basically made into what they are today. Moving from being their everything to seeing them every couple weeks. And that, I can't imagine that. Like with my kids, 4 and 7 years old, I cannot imagine that. And honestly, part of me is dreading that day coming when it eventually does one day. I can't wait to see what they become. But you know what? I'm going to cherish every moment right now while I'm still their hero.
But of course, that's meaning I am applying to their hand stencils, and that complicated relationship between art and its viewers is never more fraught than when we are looking deeply into the past. In September of 1940, an 18-year-old mechanic named Marcel Ravidat was walking his dog Robot in the countryside of southwestern France when the dog disappeared down a hole. Robot eventually returned, but the next day Ravidat went to the spot with 3 friends to explore the hole. And after quite a bit of digging, they discovered a cave with walls covered with paintings, including over 900 paintings of animals, horses, stags, bison, and also species that are now extinct, including a woolly rhinoceros. The paintings were astonishingly detailed and vivid, with red, yellow, and black paint made from pulverized mineral pigments that were usually blown through a narrow tube, possibly a hollowed bone, onto the walls of the cave.
Can you imagine coming across one of these old caves with all the drawings and paintings and the art? That would be an amazing find. I would love to visit one of these one day. I know that there's several out there that you can actually go visit. You can't get too close, obviously, but I do know that you can go see them. And I would absolutely love that, because pictures don't do these things justice a lot of time. I think that it's also worth exploring the fact that art was such a big thing back then. Throughout human history, art's always held a very special place. And it seems like as people are able to, they always turn to art. And now, granted, art can be in many different forms. There's music, there's drawing, there's entertainment, but humans always turn to art. So maybe we shouldn't make fun of those people that we graduated with art degrees. Maybe they're onto something.
It would eventually be established that these artworks were at least 17,000 years old.
Ooh.
Two of the boys who visited the cave that day were so profoundly moved by the art they saw that they camped outside the cave to protect it for over a year.
Wow.
After World War II, the French government took over protection of the site, and the cave was opened to the public in 1948. When Picasso saw the cave paintings on a visit that year, he reportedly said, "We have invented nothing." There are many mysteries at Lascaux. Why, for instance, are there no paintings of reindeer, which we know were the primary source of food for the Paleolithic humans who lived in that cave? Why were they so much more focused on painting animals than painting human forms? Why are certain areas of the cave filled with images, including pictures on the ceiling that required the building of scaffolding to create, while other areas have only a few paintings? And were the paintings spiritual? Here are our sacred animals? Or were they practical? Here is a guide to some of the animals that might kill you. Aside from the animals, there are nearly 1,000 abstract signs and shapes we cannot interpret, and also several negative hand stencils, as they are known by art historians. These are the paintings that most interest me. They were created by pressing one hand with fingers splayed against the wall of the cave, and then blowing pigment, leaving the area around the hand painted. Similar hand stencils have been found in caves around the world, from Indonesia to Spain to Australia to the Americas to Africa. We have found these memories of hands from 15 or 30 or even 40,000 years ago.
There's just something magical about that, about seeing that in person. I imagine, I've never have. But knowing that that is exactly where 17,000 years ago, a human from way back then, an ancestor of ours, held their hand up and sprayed pigment. And that's where they stood. That's their handprint. It's magical. It honestly and truly just is.
These hand stencils remind us of how different life was in the distant past. Amputations, likely from frostbite, are common in Europe, and so you often see negative hand stencils with 3 or 4 fingers, and life was short and difficult. As many as 1/4 of women died in childbirth. Around 50% of children died before the age of 5.
Wow.
But they also remind us that the humans of the past were as human as we are, their hands indistinguishable from ours. These communities hunted and gathered, and there were no large caloric surpluses, so every healthy person would have had to contribute to the acquisition of food and water, and yet somehow they still made time to create art, almost as if art isn't optional for humans. We see all kinds of hands stenciled on cave walls, children and adults, but almost always the fingers are spread, like my kids' hand stencils.
That's a really good point. They're always spread. I don't think my kids have ever made a hand stencil that's not spread. And we've never told them to do it that way. It's like it's more identifiable as a human hand if it's spread out. Because if you take away the 3D-ness of this, right, make it two-dimensional, and you take away all of the details of the creases and the veins, it's kind of hard to tell what this is. But it's pretty easy to tell what that is, right? That's really interesting, something I haven't thought of before, though.
I'm no Jungian, but it's fascinating and a little strange that so many Paleolithic humans who couldn't possibly have had any contact with each other created the same paintings the same way. Paintings that we are still making. But then again, what the Lascaux art means to me is likely very different from what it meant to the people who made it. Some academics theorize that the hand stencils were part of hunting rituals. Then there's always the possibility that the hand was just a convenient model situated at the end of the wrist. To me, though, the hand stencils at Lascaux say, "I was here." They say, "You are not new." And because they are negative prints surrounded by red pigment, they also look to me like something out of a horror movie, like ghostly hands reaching up from some bloody background. They remind me that, as Alice Walker wrote, all history is current.
All history is current. That's got some depth to it. Huh. I really like that interpretation of the handprints being a symbol for "I was here." It kind of shows this cave was inhabited by humans. We were here. This is all of us. You can leave your mark too. And future generations will know that you were here. I wonder if they had like a writing system way back then. This was prior to writing systems being invented, right? So their self-identity was them. So their handprint was as close to a name as they would have had, at least in any writable fashion.
The Lascaux cave has been closed to the public for many years now. Too many contemporary humans breathing inside of it led to the growth of mold and lichens, which has damaged some of the art. Just the act of looking at something can ruin it, I guess. But tourists can still visit an imitation cave called Lascaux 2, in which the artwork has been meticulously recreated. Humans making fake cave art to save real cave art may feel like peak Anthropocene behavior, but I have to confess that even though I am a jaded and cynical semi-professional reviewer of human activity, I actually find it overwhelmingly hopeful that 4 teenagers and a dog named Robot discovered a cave with 17,000-year-old handprints. That the cave was so overwhelmingly beautiful that 2 of those teenagers devoted themselves to its protection, and that when we humans became a danger to that cave's beauty, we agreed to stop going. Lascaux is there. You cannot visit. You can go to the fake cave we've built and see nearly identical hand stencils, but you will know this is not the thing itself, but a shadow of it. This is a handprint, but not a hand.
This is getting deep. Wow. Way deeper than I was expecting. This is insane.
This is a memory that you cannot return to. All of which makes the cave very much like the past it represents.
That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. That was just poetic and way deeper than I was expecting. Also extremely beautiful. The fact that we copied that cave, just made an image of it, and we can go visit that copy, that shadow of the cave. It's very poetic. This guy's really good with his words. A bit out of the usual, but I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching.